Investigating Diffusion, Video Lab Report, by
Alex Haver,
Louis Kudzma,
and Nick Pride.
The question we are addressing in our experiment is, does the viscosity of a liquid affect the ability of a particle to diffuse or reach equilibrium? Our hypothesis is the viscosity of a solution will affect the particle's average velocity during dynamic equilibrium. Our prediction, particles that are floating in the aqueous dish solution will have a greater average velocity due to less viscosity. Our experiment examines the state of dynamic equilibrium after diffusion has taken place. Tracker software was used to track the ability of 2 microliter polystyrene beads to move throughout the solution. Our results: deionized water moved quicker overall.
Our system schema includes the earth, polystyrene beads, and our solutions of DI water and dish soap. Gravity is acting upon the solution and the beads, while the beads and the solution are in contact with one another.
Now, what is diffusion? Diffusion is movement of particles across the membrane to achieve equilibrium. This is different from dynamic equilibrium because dynamic equilibrium is the random movement of particles in a solution after diffusion has taken place. We can model dynamic equilibrium and diffusion using computational modeling. In this model, the green particles, or the beads, were set to the left side of the cube, and the water, or the white molecules, were set to the right side of the cube. Random elastic collisions took place, thus modeling dynamic equilibrium.
In our experiment, we used a microscope with 40 times zoom and a camera, 2 different colloid suspensions with 2 microliter polystyrene beads in DI water and dish soap, and a glass slide, and tracker software on a laptop was also used. We set up our experiment by first placing the different colloid suspensions under a microscope with a camera and recording the movement of the polystyrene beads using tracker software. The average velocity of the beads was calculated by using the combined vectors in the x and y directions. Through the principle of conservation of momentum, we can say that energy is conserved in elastic collisions.
The results were found using the program Tracker, in which we set parameters to show that each of the beads were exactly 2 micrometers long. The results showed that the average velocity for the beads in DI water and soap had an average velocity of 5.7086 times 10 to the negative 6. Meanwhile, the polystyrene beads just in DI water had an average, or a larger average velocity of 8.0335 times 10 to the negative 6. Through this, we can conclude that the polystyrene beads in the water and dish soap did not travel as fast as the polystyrene beads in DI water alone. The results presented on this slide represent the unique particle's velocity in the x direction, represented in the blue color, and the y direction, represented in the red color. This solution was just deionized water. The results for deionized water and dish soap represent the unique particle velocities in both the x direction, represented in blue, and the y direction, represented in red. The results provided from Tracker refuted our hypothesis that particles move faster in a solution of deionized water and soap. Dish soap forms micelles around the nonpolar polystyrene, which causes the deionized water and soap suspension to have a higher viscosity. This interaction makes it less favorable for the micelles to move away from the H2O, decreasing the velocity of the beads. The motion of the beads describes dynamic equilibrium because they are diffusing from one area of the solution to another through water. The variable that we changed and measured is the colloid suspension, either water versus soap, while keeping the mass of the particles in the suspension constant. Compared to the computational simulation of diffusion, our physical experiment has many more variables, such as air temperature, any breeze in the room, and the inability to see water particles causing the beads to move randomly. Extraneous variables and possible human error should be taken into account when working with software and materials. We only took 2 trials, which means this data only applies to 2 cases. There is potential for our data to be proven wrong.